Wow, wasn't that fun?
Oh, well.
I knew we was going to beat them clowns.
Nine to noon.
We're coming. We're coming.
Tickets to be given away today. It behooves you to listen to each and every minute of today's 9 to noon so you can howl for Game 3 at Target Center. Good morning. It's Paul Allen. It's 9 to noon. Mad producer Eric Nordquist producing. And we welcome you to the presentation. Speaking of those Minnesota Timberwolves tickets, we have a couple of ways we're going to give them away. The first way would be...
Absolutely. Just by listening to 9 to noon, and at some point I'm going to be asking for callers. And it's really important you're listening to this segment with our upcoming guest, Dane Moore.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to ask you to tell me something that he said from this segment. And before the hour is out, one of you is going to walk away with a pair of tickets to Game 3. And so tickets go on sale for 3, 4, and 6 at 11 a.m. today. But by listening to 9 to noon, you can skip those lines and get hooked up just for listening and paying attention 9 to noon.
And here is Dane Moore at Dane Moore NBA via the X machine, or as the elderly call it, Twitter. And he does the Dane Moore NBA podcast. All right, 3-2. He also does the Dane Moore NBA podcast. And good morning, Dane. It's Paul Allen. How are you?
What's up, PA? I'm good, man. Let's do another round. I'm ready for it.
Per the podcast with Jace Frederick of the Pioneer Press, which was very, very good. I listened to it this morning as I was preparing, and you can find that via at Dane Moore NBA. Do you envision Aaron Gordon checking Anthony Edwards, or do you think that is best for Denver? Is that the best approach for Denver?
That's how I would do it, PA. I mean, I think what has shifted in a year from going from the playoff series, Wolves, Nuggets, a season ago to this Wolves Nuggets series right now is that Denver has to prioritize Anthony Edwards more. What happened last year was they put Aaron Gordon, their best defender, on Cat, which, makes sense. Gordon's the 4 for them. Cat was the 4 for the Wolves. But I just think it shifted where even if it's a little bit of a positional cross match for Gordon, if he's your best defender, I think he needs to be on Anthony Edwards. And that's where I would start the equation if I was Michael Malone. It's not that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope isn't a good defender. I just think for Ant, you got to start treating him like Luka. Like, it always has to be your best defender, and you might need to give more size to guard him. I really think Gordon should guard him, and then that kind of shifts things down from there. But Ant's priority number 1 to me. Priority number 2 and 3 probably too.
And with your guest for the Dane Moore NBA podcast, Jace Frederick of the Pioneer Press. Jace, by the way, with the over 11.5 on Malik Beasley points last night, Malik had 18. He had 18. I mean, I'm racetrack raised. I'm always up for a good tout, and Jace nailed that one last night.
He did, man. Jace is the best.
How about, by the way, Game 1 with the Wolves at Denver Saturday? It's going to be either 6:30 or 8:30 p.m. Central, depending on what some other teams do tomorrow. 6:30 or 8:30 p.m. Central, Game 1. How about Finch in the knee? I bet it finally all has settled in with the gang recently as they prepare for the champions.
Yeah, man, that's brutal. I mean, I know you had Mike on the other day, but it's just, you've gotten to know Chris well through your guys' weekly appearances. I mean, I talk about on my show all the time about how helpful it is to have the type of coach he is for myself and the other writers. He's so open, and we've all developed such a good professional, relationship with him. And, how important this series obviously is to him. Paul, I don't even really know how to approach it in my head. There's no precedent to go off of. So I've just been kind of Well, we'll see.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I guess we'll have practice here in a couple hours. Maybe we'll get a little more information, but it's just sad right now.
Yeah, he's salt of the earth. He's spectacular. And in covering all sports, as 9 to Noon does, over the course of a quarter century, those in that post in sports are not always spectacular or open or real or authentic or salt of the earth, and he is. I adore him. Now, just, like you said, maybe you'll get some more clarity later when they address the media, but you're an elite NBA mind. Just how, if in any way, does what has happened to Chris Finch impact this series?
I don't know. I really don't know, because I know how you normally approach a series. You have all these things planned out and laid out beforehand, obviously, like they did for the week before the Sun series. And Finch is approaching all of everyone's jobs individually, communicating through that. I mean, that can still kind of happen in this series. I know Finch is having surgery this morning, but like broadly, he could still be there for part of the implementation of the game plan. I guess it's just the in-game execution stuff that is the question. But I mean, I think you know this, but Mike Nori is kind of the in-game execution guy anyways, normally. He's the one handling rotations.
Right.
He's the one often, making schematic shifts through all of it. So it's not like Micah hasn't been included in that execution part of the coaching process previously. So I don't know. Maybe is that glass half full? Maybe it's like it doesn't matter. He was already doing it anyways. I really don't know what to think about the topic.
Hey, Dane, is Anthony becoming a coach on the floor during these games? I mean, it's as if he has become obsessed with learning every nuance there is because he just saw it all versus Phoenix. It's kind of like you laid out the plan, they execute it, he sees it, and now like he coaches it to other players on the floor.
I think he's like a hands-on learner. Like, I think that's how, and then if you put it in his hands and you have him do it, he's got it. He maybe it wouldn't come, he couldn't draw it out for you on paper or whatever, but I think we saw that last series. I mean, when you and I got on here and previewed that last week, what was the number one thing we were talking about? Ant's ability to play make against the way Phoenix was going to double team him, right? And it was a bit of a question going into that series because Ant had struggled turning the ball over when teams had guarded him over the course of the season. But they spent that week, they drilled that out, they let Ant be a hands-on learner. And yeah, man, that's the most he's ever looked like Luka Doncic in his career. Like that, he not only got to the basket but passed as well. That's Luka.
Right. So off what you've seen this year, or just because there will be changes into this playoff series from a matchup standpoint, but Edwards gets Porter Jr., right, and preferably makes him shoot threes. Is that a fair way to look at it, Dane?
Oh, you don't want Michael Porter Jr. to shoot threes, man. He's one of the best shooters in the league.
Really?
I think that's a scary, like, low-key part of this matchup, right? Okay. You're so hyper fixated on stopping the Murray-Jokic two-man game there, right? And pick and roll. Maybe you have to bring a third guy in to guard that. Well, Denver's going to make that third guy be the guy who's guarded Michael Porter Jr., and then he's going to be open from three. He's one of those movement shooters, high release point. He's like 6'10", 6'11". I think he's a real dangerous point in this. And it presents another interesting matchup question. Like, that's who Ant normally guards in this matchup, but we all know what Ant's good at defensively, right? He's a slap the floor, one-on-one, me, you, let's go at it. Like, that's what he's great at defensively. That's not how Michael Porter Jr. plays. He's roaming around the perimeter. He's dancing around screens. He's doing that thing. And that's what Ant's still not good at defensively. So I don't like Ant in the MPJ matchup, and I'm curious to see if they shift some things around. Maybe you put Mike Conley on him there, or maybe as we get into mixed lineups, we get Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was the best defender on the Wolves in the first round. Well, I guess Jay did too. But Nickeil's a problem too. I think Nickeil's really important for helping the Wolves be able to guard Michael Porter Jr. and things around the Jokic and Murray pick and roll combination.
Yeah, elite box, elite correction there. Porter, 39.7 this year on three-pointers, 34.3 his last 10 games, 38% against the Wolves. You're absolutely right. Dane Moore, at Dane Moore NBA via Twitter. The Dane Moore NBA podcast is something you can listen to with his guest, Jace Frederick, to get ready for this series. It's available right now. Do you feel either Karl or Gobert, but for the Wolves, hopefully not both, will be battling fouls this series because of the way Jokic plays?
Yeah. That's going to be kind of inevitable, right? Like, and the Wolves play a physical brand of defense. That's part of, like, it's baked in, right? Like, it was baked in the Phoenix series. I mean, what was that, game 3, and it's the fourth quarter, and it's like, Nikhil has 5, Jaden has 5, Karl has 5, Mike has 5. It's like, that's just kind of part of it, I think, with their style of play, and it's part of the reason it really helps that they're deep. You know, this is a deep team that can kind of handle some foul trouble, did handle foul trouble in the first round. I think Kyle Anderson and Naz Reid are important from that depth standpoint, because if Karl picks up 2 in the first 3 minutes guarding Jokic, well, the Wolves still want somebody else to go guard Jokic, because we've talked about this before, PA. They don't want Rudy on Jokic. They want Rudy to be, you know, that lurking pterodactyl in the middle of the lane, taking away passing lanes, situationally doubling. It's really important that somebody else stays out of foul trouble to be able to guard Jokic so Gobert can do that. That's the Wolves' defensive weapon in that, is just Rudy being in the middle of the paint.
The Wolves absolutely should have a massive advantage with bench players, right?
Massive.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, Denver's in the financial situation like the Wolves are coming into, right? They had to let Bruce Brown go a year ago. Their bench is made up of, you know, Christian Brown, a second-round player, Peyton Watson, a second-round player, a couple of rookies. You know, shout out Hopkins, Zeke Naji off the bench there, but it's not Naz Reid, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, you know, and Kyle Anderson. It's a much lower level group of bench players.
Right. Back to Mike Inori for a second. You mentioned it earlier, you know, as with what his assumed role is going to be moving forward Saturday. Seriously, how big of an opportunity is this for Mike Inori?
You know Micah a bit, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've wondered that, right? Because he's an assistant coach on one of the best teams in the NBA this season. Like, what normally happens? Those are the guys who get the interview. So I've been, like, thinking about this for a couple of months, and it's a little hard for me in my mind to separate Micah and Chris. They've just been such a tandem in this the whole time, and so, like, pleased in that role. Like, I've always got the sense that Micah loves this role. He's like top assistant with my best friend, you know? And so that's where it's always been kind of hard for me to picture what that, like, opportunity looks like, because he seems like he loves what he's doing right now. So, I mean, I think probably good for him to get some exposure in all of this here, you know, maybe someday, but I don't know. I just think Micah and Chris have really been building something here, and it gives me the sense of one of those, like, we're seeing this thing through together sort of things. But obviously, you know, we'll see what happens, and Mike is going to be in the limelight a lot more, which is going to be really awesome for him and probably hilarious for all of us who are watching. But I don't know. Both of those guys deserve all the credit. You know, they kind of made it from the bottom in this thing, man. Like, credit to those dudes.
Before the picks and the switches and everything, McDaniels gets Jamal Murray, right?
Yeah, I would think the game plan is 48 minutes of hell for Jamal Murray. You know, it's Jaden and then it's Nikhil, and there's nothing easy for him the whole time, because Denver can't win if Jamal doesn't play well.
Right.
Like, Jokic can do his thing. They need Jamal, and Jamal's going to probably deliver, right? Like, that's what he does in the playoffs. But the Wolves have McDaniels and Alexander Walker. I mean, is there anything tougher? Maybe in Boston, like Derek White and Drew Holiday. Other than that, Jaden McDaniels and Nikhil Alexander Walker might be the two toughest players you can put on any sort of 6'4" guard. I mean, look what happened to Devin Booker last round, man. Like, they have a great counter for Jamal Murray in this series.
Jokic is the obvious answer, but what does Denver do markedly different compared to the Phoenix Suns? I mean, put Jokic in there, but outside of that too.
They play team basketball, man.
Right.
I think Phoenix had so many more answers offensively than they got to in that series. Like, weren't there these little pockets of time where you were watching and you're like, that worked? Like, spacing Booker to the corner or actually running a play. You know, like, Phoenix fumbled that to me. I don't think they would have won the series, but, like, they didn't tap into pressure points. And I say that to mean that's exactly what Denver does. Denver is just like, okay, here's this weak point. Hit it over and over again. We're going to make you adjust. We're going to make you shift out of this coverage that you're most comfortable in. Like, that's what Jokic does. Like, that's the machine of the Denver Nuggets. And it's having the shooter. It's having Porter Jr. in the corner there. It's having somebody he can play two-man game with. It's Aaron Gordon on the lob, on the offensive glass. Like, this team is a machine, and they're going to play so much smarter than the Phoenix Suns did a round ago. The Timberwolves have been terrific versus Jokic passing this season. Nikola had a 0 and 2 assist games against the Wolves, and it absolutely seemed to be an emphasis. What plays into that? I don't know, because I tried to ask Finch about it after every game, and he would roll his eyes at me like they got lucky or something like that. I was like, I don't know, Chris. It's like 3 assists in the game, and I guess, like, in all seriousness, it's like you're just trying to limit him, right? And maybe it is. He ends up getting his 40, but if he only has 4 assists there, I think what takes away the assists is the way that they're guarding him, right? They put Cat on him, and then they pterodactyl, like I said before, Gobert in the middle of the lane. Like, he takes away some of those cutting lanes. Yeah. So it's kind of like Jokic has to get his individually scoring-wise.
And 2 more here. With Rudy, with Stifle Tower, I mean, shouldn't they be able to pound low to Rudy like they did against Phoenix? I mean, start inside out? Yeah, I mean, I don't know, though, but Jokic will be guarding him. I think Rudy needs to enforce himself on the offensive glass at all times. I think this is less so a Rudy, like, offensive series. I don't think he can really move a Gordon or a Jokic in the ways he could, right? You know, some of the smaller guys that were guarding him there. Like, I think this is more of a pick and roll playmaking series for Gobert in a way, right? Like, Denver likes to bring Jokic up to the level there on the screen and kind of trap Ant or show him hands. So Rudy's going to get in on the short roll a lot, and he's going to have to find Jaden or Nikhil or whoever in the corner, make good decisions there, or, you know, nobody likes it, but that push shot he has, that little kind of floater thing, it looks really ugly. That's important in this series, too. Like, I think Rudy needs to get them going in pick and roll, but probably be more of a passer out of it, just given the way that Denver typically covers this thing. I don't want to see a lot of Rudy post-ups, man, ever. That's, like, situational. All right, my man. The Dane Moore podcast is live May 9th, a day before Game 3. Where is it, and what time will it start? Yeah, man, we're doing a bunch of these live shows at Falling Knife Brewing Company. They've been a long-time sponsor of the pod. It's really cool, man. A bunch of people come out, and that's one of the coolest things, right, about this whole Wolves run is to kind of see, like, the Wolves community come alive. So yeah, we'll be doing that the day before Game 3 at Falling Knife Brewing Company, just kind of getting people together, doing a live show. We'll call you again next week. We'll pop the live Dane Moore NBA podcast again next week, and we greatly appreciate your time. Have a good day, okay? Yeah, all right, PA, let's do it. Yep, see ya. Dane Moore, at Dane Moore NBA via Twitter. Timberwolves and Denver Nuggets, Game 1 from the Mile Get High City Saturday. It's either 6:30 Central or 8:30 Central, depending on what some teams do tomorrow. Nordo produces, and I'm Paul Allen. The What's on Deck set list is provided by TimberTech and TimberTech.com. Mike Florio from ProFootballTalk.com, 20 minutes from now. Vikes Bites around the corner. Timberwolves tickets to be given away during the first 2 hours of the radio show, and to the cash thing right now. Absolutely. And those of you who are listening to that segment with Dane Moore, keep listening as I call out a question and I call for your calls. But first, the cash thing.
The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword Bills. I mean, you could win hoops tickets and $1,000. How about that for a morning? The keyword is Bills at KFAN.com.
Today.
The Fan.
With the 10th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select
J.J. McCarthy,
quarterback, Michigan.
Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites 9 to noon is always brought to you by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. Go to thousandhillslifetimegrazed.com. You can pick up the elite grass-fed product. From the ground beef to the brats and the dogs to the briskets to all of it. You can go to your local Coburn's locations, local co-op. You can shop online as well. Thank you, Thousand Hills. Thank you, Tom Pelissero, for everything, whether it's joining the power trip throughout draft season. He's played the initials game. I believe I beat Tom Pelissero in the initials game. It's when, you're just creating resume moments as you pull out the string of life. But Tom Pelissero also great at his job via NFL Network when breaking down, insiding on all things National Football League Shield related. He was on the Rich Eisen show yesterday doing a terrific, and you can find it on X/Twitter. It's about 6 minutes long of him kind of doing a breakdown. Like, how did J.J. McCarthy get to the Vikings? How did the Vikings get to J.J. McCarthy? So he did some great breakdowns. Everybody knew Caleb Williams was going number one. Kind of popping up over the last year, but Jaden Daniels ultimately, he was going to the Commanders. Patriots wouldn't move off that spot. We know those things. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. goes number 4. Cardinals would not trade back. Wanted what they feel is the next elite playmaker in the NFL at the 4 spot. So here's Tom Pelissero over the next couple of minutes talking about from the Chargers on how J.J. McCarthy found his way to the purple and gold.
The Chargers, who I think were open to moving down, and they know that they've got a lot that they had to do, but they were probably realistically going to stand in and take Joe Alt, which they did. Now you're sweating it out if you're Minnesota on, all right, are the Giants, are we right? And they're not going to take JJ. Sure enough, they take Malik Neighbors after all the signals that have been out there that they were considering a quarterback there. For where they're at, and once those top 3 guys were off the board, going with Neighbors made a lot of sense. At 7, you're not concerned about the Titans at 7. You know they're not in the quarterback bucket. 8, the Falcons surprise everybody. I mean, everybody. And I know it had been speculated upon. I know Rappaport, who was just on the show, had said it before the draft. Hey, don't be surprised. But it always felt to people in the league like a smokescreen. Like, yeah, you like Michael Penix, but there's no way you're taking him at 8 right after signing Kirk Cousins to a $100 million guaranteed deal. Well, the Falcons were having trade calls. They were looking into trading down, but this is the complicated part, and every GM will tell you every week, you say, oh yeah, just trade out of the pick. You need someone to do it, and you need to get the right value. They end up standing in and realize about 5 minutes onto the clock, we're not able to get out of this pick. They take Michael Penix. Now, if you're the Vikings, you have to be sweating it out a little bit because they had J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix pretty close on the board. J.J. was above Penix, but they were both guys that the Vikings would have been comfortable taking at 11. Now one of those options is gone, and the team on the clock at 9 is the Bears, who are still not going to trade with you because you're within the division.
Right.
So the Bears clearly are not going to take a quarterback again, but they could have traded out. They don't. They stand in, they take Rome Odunze. Now at 10, the risk for the Vikings are the Broncos, are the Raiders, is somebody going to leapfrog us, take it J.J. McCarthy. Right or wrong, the Vikings are under the impression, hey, somebody might be trying to trade this pick. Let's just not take any chances, so they move up to 10 and get J.J. McCarthy. But that's the high wire act, pick by pick, as this thing is playing out, that you don't know really until the Patriots don't trade with you at 3. You don't 100% know how this is going out, but that's why you strategize and you have everything in place. And now the next drama in Minnesota, besides Justin Jefferson's contract, will be, is it JJ or is it Sam Darnold as your week 1 starting quarterback?
How about that breakdown from Mr. Pelissero? I mean, just laying it out. And again, the full 6-minute version gives you from Caleb all the way through that thing. Great job by Pelissero, but it's great for me visualizing exactly what was happening, the shock and awe at pick 8.
Agreed.
And all of that is part of his commentary via Rich Eisen.
Yeah, the imagery and the way he laid out that pressure point with the Giants and the Vikings peppering New England to get to a spot.
Yeah.
It ain't going to work. So now you're Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and the staff in the room, and you got to hold your collective breath for 5 minutes or X amount of minutes as the Giants, like with the 6th pick in the 2024 NFL draft, the New York Giants select J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix Jr., and then they go with the LSU receiver, which probably value-wise added up, specifically given they have Daniel Jones, for better or for worse. Well, then the Penix Jr. situation, as .com Tom laid out, that throws the proverbial monkey wrench into the whole thing.
It does.
So now you got 9, 10. You got 9 and 10 wondering, A, is the anti-Vike coming up? B, or the rate? Tom laid it out beautifully. And that little move up from 11 to 10, it may not have needed to happen. In other words, you may have been able to get McCarthy at 11 without trading. But why take that chance? They didn't, and they got him.
So as part of that, when I'm listening to it, he notes that they had JJ above Michael Penix Jr. on their draft board, but that they would have been comfortable, he believes, in taking either one of those guys at 11. I guess what were your thoughts leading up to it? You and I spent 2 months talking about Drake May, talking about JJ McCarthy, really dialing in on those two guys. Michael Penix, it sounds like not only was he an option for the Falcons at 8, that's clear, but in the end, he may have been an option for the Vikings at 11. Where did you sit on Penix as draft day unfolded?
I absolutely believe what Tom said to be true, and he's more juiced into the situation than me. So Tom is a responsible reporter who does not say things or put things out there concerned with his Twitter following. So if Tom says it, it's gridiron gospel. Now, that plays into something that I said up to the draft, sharing with you. I was catching steam, not much, but I was catching a vibe that Penix Jr. was heading the right way up the draft, and McCarthy, if you're thinking 1, 2, 3, or 4, was going the other way. So that ended up being accurate, but I just didn't exactly know. Okay, so are we talking mid-teens with McCarthy and Penix? What are we talking, top 10? I didn't press on those questions, but that came to fruition, so it's really no surprise. And I think what Tom Pelissero said is 100% accurate. The Vikings could have had Michael Penix Jr. or J.J. McCarthy, and they would have been cool.
Vikes Bites! Brought to you by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. One of our favorite parts as we get into training camp each year, and it's still a few months away, position battles, PA. And we got position battles up and down the charts. But Will Reichard, kicker, Alabama, and now a member of the Minnesota Vikings, kicking it out, dueling it out with John Parker Romo.
Yeah.
Did you anticipate that the Vikings would take a kicker? In this case, just kind of rattling through some intel on Mr. Reichard.
Yep.
He connected on more than 95% of his kicks under 40 yards the last 4 years with Alabama. Consistent ball striker with end-over-end ball flight. Gotta love that. Gets immediately off his foot, apparently. He's made 70% of his 50-plus yard field goals during his career, but he doesn't kick with booming drive, and he needs to improve consistency of kickoff depth in the pros.
Yeah, but with the way the kickoff bit has changed, that you're going to need a certain type of kicker for the kickoffs, with the angles of it, the sides of the field without it going out of bounds. So that's all going to play itself out, and quite honestly, I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm not surprised they drafted this guy because the only kicker on the roster has no NFL experience.
Right.
So therefore, it could have been
playing the free agent game. And,
could have been.
Yeah.
But instead of messing around with that, they just went out and got somebody who's considered to be the best kicker in the draft. They also, I believe the cat's name is Seth Vernon.
The punter.
Yeah, and he spent training camp with the Atlanta Falcons, I think, a couple of years ago. So they signed him yesterday to bring him in to battle with Ryan Wright. So they ain't messing around in Matt Daniels' room, are they?
He ain't heavy.
He's who?
He's a punter.
Standout rookie season for Ryan Wright. Came back to the pack a little bit last year by your estimation. What do you think of the plus-size punter into year 3?
Well, if you're under the belief that they worked rigorously with Ryan Wright during the season on directional punting, and I am. That was, I'm not going to say new to him, but at this level and with what their expectations were or what they were desiring, it was new. And it changed, it just changed what we would remember all the way back to a preseason game at Denver a couple of years ago, where he was just killing it and dropping them inside the 20, and it was just beautiful. It's how he beat the Aussie, the former Steeler. Well,
Barry? Jordan Barry, maybe?
Jordan Barry, thank you. So I believe there were extenuating circumstances that played into Ryan Wright's season last year, coming back a little bit from his rookie year. I saw him at the facility before our Monday show. He's cut a bunch of weight. He's markedly thinner and just kind of shaped his body a little bit differently. So he's going to be battling this Vernon cat in the offseason.
My last thing for you, my last bite, my last nibble for Vikes Bites, brought to you by Thousand Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Defensive tackle depth. This was something Saucy and I did a show on Saturday, just kind of running through day 3 of picks, and it just kind of concerned me as I'm just looking 10,000-foot view of the depth chart, right? And I see Harrison Phillips, I see Jerry Tillery. An interesting opportunity for Jerry, by the way. First-round pick, doesn't work out with the Chargers, I think, last year with Vegas, and now he's here.
He had a really good game against us last year in that 3-0 snooze fest.
And so we want to see more of that on our side of the equation this time. And then Jaquelin Roy. That's kind of your depth chart into day 3. Ultimately, they take Levi Drake Rodriguez in the 7th round, and then a couple of college free agents. Is that as we, approach camps and things and start putting things together?
Yeah.
Do you believe that still is something? Maybe it's Patrick Jones working inside. He's done that in the past.
Yeah.
Just depth wise, that looks a little thin to me.
Well, you're right if you look at it from a base defense standpoint, 3-4 or 4-3, but as I learned last year with all the face changes with Flores, it's like Metellus is listed as a safety. Okay, he played as much linebacker. He played as much in other positions as he did safety. So Dallas Turner, I believe, will be part of that mix.
Okay,
with his position flexibility, and with Flores, it's just with the 7 strewn across the line of scrimmage and just the way he manipulates things. There are going to be players playing in situations in that what would be deemed tackle or 3 technique spot.
Sure.
That we can't see right now.
Okay.
And I believe one of them, off our interview the other day with the rookie Dallas Turner, he said that his position flexibility includes him playing inside. So I don't see him as a first or second down prototypical inside guy, but maybe third down, messing with the A-gap and providing some pop there. Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, joins us around the corner, and we are about 20 minutes away from giving away a couple of Minnesota Timberwolves tickets to Game 3, the first home game, and that'll take place a week from Friday at Target Center, and at 11 a.m. today for the Timberwolves. Tickets go on sale for Games 3, 4, and 6. Boom meets gloom next on KFAN.
Football Feast.
Hey, Michael, what's going on?
Hey, Paul Allen. How are you, Paul Allen?
Hey, my man, great job by you and your staff during the draft, up to it, during it, and over the weekend, and it continues at ProFootballTalk.com now. And people perhaps have read this or seen this via PFT Live, but just for the sake of 9 to noon and the Minnesota Vikings, what did you think of the top 2 guys the Vikings got? And good morning.
Well, good morning, Paul. I was very intrigued by the whole process, how much of it was real, how much of it was fugazi. We talked today about the Drake May situation and the reported effort by the Giants and the Vikings to trade up to number 3 with the Patriots. And I wonder whether or not the Vikings or the Giants really wanted to do the deal, because the Patriots were making it clear they wanted something unprecedented. The Vikings offer, as reported by Mike Reese of ESPN.com, who covers the Patriots at ESPN, and I think it's not all that difficult to put together breadcrumbs back to who he got his information from, it really didn't look like an offer you would even consider not refusing. 3 total first-rounders, 4 third overall, plus a couple of mid-round picks flowing from the Patriots back to the Vikings. That isn't the kind of deal that's going to get the Patriots to say yes. And it really makes me wonder, were they just kind of going through the motions, putting an offer out there that wasn't an insult, but that was plausible, but they knew the Patriots weren't going to take, as a way to maybe cover up true intentions? And, of course, the problem is no one's ever going to tell you the truth about this, but maybe they wanted McCarthy all along, and maybe the whole May thing was just a way to distract from their hope that they could get in striking distance from McCarthy. They ultimately trade from 11 to 10 just to make sure that they don't get jumped, and they get the guy they wanted. So you could argue they got the guy they wanted. They're never going to say anything but that. I just wonder if they really wanted May, because they could have put some more pieces on the table to get that deal done if they really and truly wanted to come up to number 3. And then the Dallas Turner bit, hey, there was talk that that's who the Falcons would take at 8. The Vikings trade up to get him. Now, I would have liked to have seen them get Byron Murphy, but Dallas Turner will be fine, too, in a different way. Byron Murphy creating havoc from the interior. Dallas Turner, the guy that basically replaces Danielle Hunter and Brian Flores' defense. So I like that they came out of it with 2 players, not 1, because obviously if they had traded up to 3, they would have come out of it with just 1 player with all eggs in that basket.
McCarthy told our show 9 to noon Monday he felt it was Minnesota or Denver. He felt those were the 2 spots that had the highest probability of him landing. And with Denver, I'm sure they're enthralled with Bo Nix, right?
They are, and I think that the McCarthy stuff was smokescreen from Denver to keep the attention off of Nix, just like there was some McCarthy Giants stuff that was taking the attention off of their interest in trying to jump from 6 to 3 to get Drake May. So I don't really think the Broncos wanted McCarthy more than Nix, or enough more than Nix, to jump ahead of the Vikings either to 10 or 9 or wherever, because remember, Sean Payton's the guy 7 years ago who was waiting for Patrick Mahomes to fall to him and got jumped by Andy Reid. So he wasn't going to let that happen again. If he had decided McCarthy is special and dramatically more special than Nix for that offense, then I think he would have done it. And I don't know what the Vikings' fallback would have been if McCarthy was gone. But, it didn't come to that. And McCarthy lands in a great spot for him. I think any of the guys who were coming out this year at the quarterback position, any of the 6 taken in the top 12, should have wanted to go to Minnesota. It's a great spot for a quarterback to flourish. If things go well, you don't have to worry about the offensive coordinator leaving to become a head coach like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May will have to do, Michael Penix as well, if and when he ever plays. And he will, I believe, sooner rather than later. But for J.J. McCarthy, it's get on the field, build the relationship, get better and better and better. That's what Kevin O'Connell was doing with Kirk Cousins, and we saw the product of that after 2 years with Cousins at 35. You got McCarthy coming in fresh 4 or 5 years from now. The idea is this kid becomes year-to-year starting quarterback, franchise caliber, Super Bowl appearances, first franchise quarterback since Fran Tarkenton. That's what the job now is, to turn this kid into.
Florio.
Were you not flabbergasted by the Penix Jr. selection at 8?
Flabbergasted, yes. I wasn't entirely blown away by it, though, because there was enough out there to say, hey, the window for Penix opens at 8. And I said last Thursday that when Penix is drafted, that will be the oh crap, I didn't say crap, moment of round 1. And mentioned Penix to Atlanta, and then said it would be stunning because of Cousins, because you don't sign a guy to a $100 million fully guaranteed deal in March and then draft with a top 10 pick a quarterback in April. If you're going to do the quarterback in April, you sign Gardner Minshew or Jacoby Brissett or someone else who's placeholder until the rookie is ready. You don't go out and make this huge all-in investment in a quarterback and then undermine it 6 weeks later. And one of our readers pointed out to me that Kirk Cousins said during his introductory press conference, it's important to have the owner, the GM, the coach, the quarterback all on the same page, and when they are, you can win a Super Bowl. Well, they didn't even give him the book. He had no idea what was going on with this Michael Penix thing. And, Paul, look, this is one of those realities where you're never going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth because it creates other issues. But I think if we were able to slip a little sodium pentothal into, Kirk Cousins' Gatorade, he would admit that he would have stayed in Minnesota if he had known that this was going to happen to him that quickly in Atlanta. It just makes no sense. That 8th overall pick was an asset that could have been used to make the team better so they can win a Super Bowl or at least try to get to one with Kirk Cousins as the quarterback. Now, the guy they used that 8th overall pick on, if things go well for Kirk, he's never going to play for as long as Kirk is there.
What with McCarthy? What do you believe is the probability J.J. McCarthy can start Week 1?
Well, I don't know. It all comes down to what Kevin O'Connell thinks about when he's ready and when it's time to put him out there. That's the challenge with a rookie quarterback. Once he's out there, it's difficult to pull him back. And if you put him out early and he's overwhelmed and you're concerned that it's going to screw him up, what do? Look at what the Jets, who screwed up Sam Darnold, frankly, in 2018, 2019, et cetera. And then when they got Zach Wilson, they tried to bench him in his second year, saying he needs to take a step back and work on fundamentals. You don't want to throw a guy into the fray too quickly, but I think everything going forward should be about getting him on the field ASAP, because I'm a firm believer in getting reps. The more you're out there, the more you see, the more experienced you are, the more the game slows down. Now, is that as critical with Kevin O'Connell when he's going to be feeding you everything you need to know until 15 seconds are on the play clock and the coach to quarterback speaker shuts off? No, but still, I would want him out there. The sooner he's out there, the sooner he gets to his ceiling. This is all about getting J.J. McCarthy to his ceiling.
Is it fair to say, Mike, there never will be? Well, never's tough, but there probably never will be 6 quarterbacks selected in the top 12 again. I mean, what an absolute aberration.
I can't say never because it just happened a week ago. It's a confluence of different factors. And look, we are just 13 years into a rookie wage scale that makes it affordable to go all in with a quarterback at the top of the draft, because if it doesn't work out, you don't have the gigantic financial consequence that goes along with it, with the guaranteed money that the quarterback will end up getting. You're not stuck with him. You can move on. You can turn the page like we've seen teams do. And we just so happen to have enough teams that were willing and interested in quarterbacks, and it just played out that way. And, a couple weeks before the draft, it's like, boy, there are 7 teams in the top 13 that could be looking at quarterbacks, and that was without considering the Falcons. Could there really be 6 quarterbacks in the top 13? And then as we got about a week or so from the draft, it's like, well, that could just be teams that are hoping there's a run on quarterback, so it pushes down the board guys they'd like to get. And then as we got closer to the draft, it's like Penix. And I had somebody tell me, and I said this. This isn't one of those things, well, I knew it, but I didn't say it. Penix is going in the top half of round 1, period. And Nix, it was like, well, he might slip out of round 1, but then it was like, no, Nix is going in round 1 as well. Now, I think the Broncos did a great job of keeping it quiet, because if people had known they really were thinking Nix, then maybe the Raiders try to jump them to get to Bo Nix first. I don't know. The thinking was maybe the Broncos would trade down and get Nix later in the round, or swoop back into round 1 to get Nix. But end of the day, and this is a twist on what Sean Payton went through 7 years ago, he doesn't want to risk not getting the guy that he wants, and he clearly wanted Nix.
So off that, why do you think Sean went out of his way in his press conference to dig at the Vikings, an NFC team not even on his schedule, about the way he played the game and potentially causing them to give something extra for McCarthy? Why do you think he did that?
Well, part of it is you need to sell that you got the guy you wanted. So we wanted Nix. We wanted Nix. We wanted Nix.
Yeah, I think
we
it's
weren't going to
ridiculous.
trade up to number 10 for McCarthy. Nix wasn't plan B. Nix was plan A. Stupid Vikings traded up when they didn't have to.
Right.
And it is odd that he would do that because,
it's ridiculous.
you know, if he was trying to get the Vikings to give up assets, why would he care? You would want the Jets
Right.
to not get assets.
Thank you.
It helped the Jets. This
Thank you.
team he's got that thing with
Thank you.
from last year when he said what he said. So, at the end of the day, one of the reasons to keep your cards close to the vest before the draft, you want to be able to say after the draft, we got exactly who we wanted.
Right. Oh, I think it's ridiculous, and at face value, I don't believe him. And I believe there was more interest in J.J. McCarthy than maybe you think or is being shared out there. It's utterly...
Hey, Peyton Manning was on radio out there, and he said that the Broncos are very interested in J.J. McCarthy, and I had heard there was a private workout that nobody knew about with J.J. McCarthy. I just think that was smoke, so they would get nicked. I really do think that.
Right. But again, I mean, to go out of your way to take a dig at a team in a different conference where you're right about the Jets, you take the dig at the team that beat you last year with an offensive coordinator you replaced in Denver, and they didn't get as much as they were supposed to get. You absolutely nailed it with that. That's where the dig should go. Why does it come here? I just think it's very curious and, quite honestly, one of the more arrogant things I've ever seen.
Wow.
Caleb Williams.
Salty.
Caleb Williams thinks he's. I mean, Caleb Williams. You know, I'm overemphasizing this a little bit, but I mean, he thinks he's just going to run roughshod on the league, right? Basically, told the punter, "We don't need you."
Well, I kind of like the swagger.
Me too.
I kind of like the attitude. I remember a time 26 years ago, before you were calling the games for the Vikings, where a certain first-round draft pick, first name of Randy, last name of Moss, said, "I'm going to go in and rip up the league," and and he did. So, I like that. The bar is going to be high, and the expectations are going to be high. And let's see, there's going to be a lot of people who want to see him fail. We were joking around last week when they showed a shot of Caleb Williams in the draft room. It's like, oh no, pink phone, don't draft him, Bears, he's got a pink phone. But people are looking for anything that they can use to pick at Caleb Williams, and that just goes with the territory. But, at the end of the day, I think he may have gone through a moment or two of wondering, do I really want to go to Chicago? Is this really the best place for me? And he decided it was, and they got Rome Odunze, and, they haven't had a franchise quarterback, a true franchise quarterback in Chicago.
Yep.
We think it's a long time for the Vikings. Fran Tarkenton, late 70s. Sid Luckman last played for the Bears in 1950. It's been 74 years since they've had a true franchise quarterback. That's amazing.
Right. And I think he's going to be really good, personally speaking. In closing, Belichick, man. Belichick fired a bullet on that McAfee draft night show. Holy cow. And you've said this before or written about it, but when he engages, he's phenomenal analyzing football on TV.
Oh, he's absolutely great. And he needs to be, if he plans on coaching next year, on platforms where it'll cause a fan base or two or more, and ideally a fan base of a team that'll be looking for a coach, to really warm up to him. When it was clear he wasn't going to be back with New England, when things were really going down the tubes, after they lost in Germany and it just was falling apart, we posed the question on X, very non-scientific Twitter X poll, but if your favorite team is looking for a coach this offseason, do you want Bill Belichick? And it was an overwhelming no. So he's got to reverse that. And, people say all the time, oh, you get him away from football, he's a completely different guy. It's like, well, that doesn't make it any better that he's a jerk when it's all football related. And he's got this military mindset that's so ingrained in him that he can't, he's afraid to say anything, that all of a sudden he's just going to blurt out some secret that's going to compromise his effort to, storm the castle or whatever he has himself convinced his team's trying to do. But yeah, he was great on that, and he'll be great on ESPN this year. He's going to make appearances on the Manning Cast, and he's going to be on with McAfee every Monday, and people are going to want to hear what he has to say and how candid he's willing to be. And it's going to be refreshing. And if he gets his way, it's not going to last very long.
Terrific. Thank you. Call you soon.
Bye.
Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, PFT, you know we. How? All righty. So how are we going to do this, the con?
All right. So as I said at the beginning of the hour, all you got to do is listen to Dane Moore and pay attention to the insight and the analysis that he's going to offer up throughout that chat with PA. It's Wolves and Nuggets, game 1 on Saturday. Tickets go on sale for the Target Center games for games 3, 4, and 6. They go on sale at 11 a.m. But in advance of that, we got tickets this first hour, and then during the 10 a.m. hour, pay attention to Kevin Gorg. I might just give you a hint there regarding maybe some Derby selections. But I need somebody right now to call in 800-320-5326, 1-800-320-5326, and answer me a simple question. When PA was talking with Dane Moore, he said somebody's going to give Jamal Murray 48 minutes of hell in this series.
Good one.
And there's actually technically 2 names that you can give me. You answer that question for me. Who was Dane Moore talking about that's going to give Jamal Murray 48 minutes of hell? If you could answer that question for me, I got a pair of tickets for you to go to game 3.
And we have 2 more to give away in the 10 o'clock hour. And like Nordo said, it will tie to our next guest, Kevin Gorg, Bally Sports North, handicapper and analyst at Canterbury Park. He and myself are going to pick horses for the Kentucky Derby. And the tickets will be tied to that topic. So make sure you listen to specifically the first 30 minutes of the next hour, and maybe you can howl at game 3. Timberwolves and Nuggets, and tickets for the Timberwolves for games 3, 4, and 6, the home games. They go on sale 1 hour from now.